This course on American politics is largely about asking questions about American politics and trying to find answers to them. You can tell the course is about questions in large part when you look at the learning objectives on Blackboard posted for each week. Each of the topics that we cover is phrased as a series of questions. And also for your creation project, either the digital portfolio or the video, where you'll need to be asking some questions about American politics and providing answers to them. Okay, so let me begin with one really big question for you, and I want you to reflect on this just a little bit. Why did the American civil rights movement have such amazing successes in working towards full economic, social, and political equality for African Americans? So just think about that for a second. Put it on pause if you want. But to help you think about it just a little bit, I want you to use your historical memory and think back to the position of African Americans in our society 100 years ago. And you think how they were numerically small, perhaps about 10% of the total U.S. population, and on average they were poorer. On average, African Americans were less educated. They faced a full range of discrimination. They had very few political rights, legal rights, social rights, or economic rights. And so they really were small, weak politically, and faced enormous discrimination. And after a 100-year period, they have achieved full legal political, social, and economic equality. It's really a remarkable achievement. So how did that happen? You could say it was God's will, or historical inevitability, or merely an accident. And all those answers may have some truth to that, but I think a fuller truth it can be obtained by trying to understand how those in the civil rights movement worked very hard for a very long time to obtain policy change, and they were able to succeed in changing Americans' policies towards African Americans by a clear understanding of the American political system. That is hard work and a long time frame put together with a clear understanding of American politics allowed African Americans and those who were their advocates, those who were their supporters, to obtain these remarkable changes. So what did you have to know if you wanted to make advancements in civil rights or in any other political field? You have to have understandings of the core documents of our country, especially the constitutions and the laws and regulations that emanate from the Constitution. What does the Constitution prohibit? What does it require? What does it allow? What does it say about civil rights and civil liberties, both to their limits and to their opportunities? What does it say about the division of power across the branches of government or between the national governments and our state and local governments? So understanding the Constitution was essential to obtain policy change. And we'll talk about the Constitution the first 2 weeks of this course. Those who seek policy change, whether it's civil rights or in any other field of policy, also have to have a solid understanding of the most important political institutions in the United States. And by political institutions, I'm talking primarily for the Congress, the executive branch, the president and the governors at the state level, the bureaucracy, those who administer the laws of the land, although that's not all they do, and the judiciary. So 4 different institutions, the legislative, executive, judicial, and the bureaucracy, each have the ability to promote change or to inhibit change. And understanding why they do what they do and why they don't do other things would be valuable if you want to get them to change their behavior. And finally, those who seek political change, civil rights or otherwise, have to have a keen understanding of what we call political behavior. That is, not what the government does, but what citizens do. So we have to understand things like campaigns and elections, public opinion, political participation, interest groups, political parties, the news media, all of those different elements that can serve as your allies or as your opponents. And the better that you understand why they do what they do or don't do, the more effective you can be in getting them to work for you and not against you. Now, whether you're talking about trying to influence political institutions or political behavior, those in the civil rights movement and all other successful advocates of policy change understand that in the political realm, people often face two different kinds of incentives. The first incentive, not the only one, but an important one, is that people are motivated by self-interest. If you're trying to effect political change, the obvious question that people who might oppose you or might support you would say is, what's in it for me? Why should I come to your aid? There may be reasons that I will oppose you that have to do with my own self-interest. Self-interest is a powerful motive for political actors, and we should always assume that our opponents have it and that we ourselves are also motivated in some sense by self-interest. That's not the only incentive. I think you should always assume that your opponents and also you are not just in it for what's in their own self-interest, what's best for them. That they're motivated by views of what I call public spirit. That is, what is best for the country and not just good for me. So civil rights advocates with a keen understanding of American political institutions and American political behavior always have to think about, why will people oppose us for their self-interest? Or how can we tap into their self-interest to get them to support us? Or what kinds of arguments can we make that don't just rely on selfishness, but inspire people to believe that we would be a more perfect union if we embrace civil rights, or, as the opponents would have, if we reject civil rights. Okay, so self-interest and public spirit always in play. Now, trying to obtain policy change, as civil rights advocates did, as will the advocates of any other form of political change, also have to think about how they're going to resolve what are called collective dilemmas. We'll talk a lot about collective dilemmas in this class. Let me just mention briefly two kinds that we'll face. One is involving coordination costs. That is, whenever we try to come together collectively to make decisions, we have two costs, not financial costs, but it can be financial costs, but costs of time, effort, and money that make arriving collective decisions difficult to do. And the first involves transaction costs. Actually making the decisions, making any kind of governmental decision, requires people to put time and effort and money into that. That is part of making the decision itself. The other aspect of coordination costs involve conformity costs. That is, any political law, any legislation, any regulation, any judicial ruling imposes conformity costs. That is, it treats people who might have different interests, different capacities, and different needs the same. It imposes conformity on those who are subject to the decisions. So decisions are difficult to make, impose transaction costs, are difficult to enforce because they impose conformity costs. The other main category of collective dilemmas we'll face involve things concerning prisoners' dilemmas, or free riding, or tragedy of the commons. These different things, prisoners' dilemmas, tragedy of the commons, free riding, involve a very nasty problem in collective decision making, which is people acting in their own self-interest and acting rationally may do things that ultimately hurt themselves and hurt the broader public. That is, one of the reasons that we have imperfect policies is not because people are evil, but if they are smart, rational, and working in their own self-interest, they nonetheless can arrive at socially suboptimal policies. And we'll see how these collective dilemmas play out through many areas of the American political sphere. Okay, that's it for right now. Dig into Chapter 1. Again, be sure to read the syllabus carefully. You've got a bunch of assignments coming up this week, so you'll get some concepts of the American political system, and you're going to dive right into the Constitution. I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.